Nigerian President Bola Tinubu has admonished newly sworn-in ministers to serve all Nigerians. Tinubu, in his congratulatory messages, advised against working in the interest of only a particular region or group of people. The president was speaking after 45 nominees took the oath of office in the capital, Abuja. Prior to the inauguration, the president had made changes in the composition of his cabinet. Let's have a quick chat on this development. Joining us now is Emmanuel Osemeka, who is Executive Director for Civil Society Center for Humanitarian and Development Affairs in Abuja. We're also joined by Jide Ojo, who is Public Affairs Analyst, also joining us from Abuja. Gentlemen, you're welcome to the square. I do want to pick, absolutely. I want to pick your thoughts on, the appointments that we have seen, these 45 cabinet ministers. What do you think, Emmanuel?
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here. I think basically the nominees, or should I say the ministers, haven't been inaugurated a while ago. It's a mixed bag, really. You have about 9 ex-governors, either one-time governor or two-time governors. You have ex-while senators. It's a cabinet that is highly populated by politicians, if I may say so, and politicians that have been in the saddle at least in the last 8 years, some in the last 19 years. And for a lot of Nigerians, a lot of them who made the leap have not really distinguished themselves in the past. But that is not to say that as they take office, that giving supposedly the renewed hope of the new administration, that things might not be different. But I believe the feelers out there is that it's almost looking like a recycled personalities, and expectations are quite low on the nominees, with the exception of a few. For example, Ali Pate for health, possibly from Wike, Nyesom Wike for FCT. I believe most likely if he's able to have the cooperation of the president and he gets release of funds, I believe most likely he will be able to complete a lot of the abandoned construction works across the FCT.
Right.
Bosu Tijani, that's another fantastic fellow for the, I think, digital economy.
Yes, digital economy.
ICT, that's a fantastic, his portfolio, his CV is really fantastic.
I see.
And I think it's Eno, right? The former Senator Eno from Cross River State for Youth and Sports. He's someone that I've also followed for a while. He's someone who comes with a lot of pedigree. Sincerely, there's a lot of expectation on him within the sports sector. For the ex-governors, I'm concerned with the defense, with Matawala in the Ministry of State, given some of the political challenges he's had in Zamfara State and his ability to navigate through the murky waters of the banditry, kidnappings, and all kinds of stuff. Then, of course, the recent issues of corruption by the suspended EFCC chairman, and of course, his counter fraud bribery accusation against the suspended EFCC chair. I'm a bit concerned with him being there, given the fact that this is a government that is talking about renewed hope. in addition to that, we're also looking at the Minister for Defense. That's the former Jigawa State Governor, Badar, right? So there's a lot of expectations on these few men that these are people I can pinpoint.
Right. And we'll look at some of those
them,
expectations in a tad, but let's move on to Jide now. Jide, what's your general analysis also of these new portfolios?
Thank you very much. For me, let me say, I think there's a lot of people do not understand critically what the constitutional responsibility of a minister is. I did an article in my column in the Punch about a month ago, and I found out that for you to be a minister, you have to be a politician, because that's what Section 147 sub 5 of the Constitution says, that you must satisfy conditions that is similar to an aspirant to House of Representatives. So, irrespective of what my brother Emmanuel said about recycled politicians, we are the one that always say that experience cannot be purchased. Experience matters. So if experience matters, and these people, none of them, there's none of them that is not a university graduate. All of them has gone to study one discipline or the other. And the fact that we don't know them, the fact that we may not know them at the national level does not mean that they are not good. Many of them have served as commissioner in their respective states. Of course, you don't expect a commissioner of the state to have national prominence. But my own concern, coming to the concern I have, is that it's an over-bloated bureaucracy. According to the Punch of yesterday, the federal government will be spending about 1.37 billion on accommodation for these people. And we are talking of cutting down the cost of governance. So what do we exactly need 45 or 48 ministers for? Then, aside from that, the Festus Keyamo told us that Minister of State is illegal. So we have 13 Minister of States right now. In fact, there's still a position for Kaduna State which is yet to be filled. And recall that we don't yet have Minister of Youth, because the person who was the 63-year-old person who was made Minister of Youth has been redeployed to Ministry of Niger Delta. So definitely we are going to have those three that are whose nominations have been stepped down because of security reasons. They are going to have those people in due course. So what do we need that kind of number for? Because when you have 45 or 48, and today is 84th day that Ashwaju has been inaugurated. This was a man that was declared president on March 1, 2023. So March 1, 2023, you have 3 months to your inauguration. You have 2 months after inauguration. The constitution says you have to submit your nominee. Yet it has taken this man almost eternity for him to come up with the list of his ministers. And we could see that he barely, in fact, I would say he haphazardly complied with the constitution, which says that you have to form your cabinet within 60 days of inauguration. As at 58th day after inauguration, he only forwarded names of 28 of his nominees. And a week or so after, he now sent another 19. This is the highest so far since the beginning of this Fourth Republic. And I feel that there will be issues around coordination, issues around monitoring, effective supervision, because how do you manage a bloated cabinet of that nature? I already foresee a situation where the minister and the Minister of State will go into Cold War, because unless there is proper delineation of responsibilities, the minister, who is the substantive minister, let's take the FCT for instance. We have Wike as the substantive minister, and we have a woman from Kaduna, Dr. Miriam, as Minister of State. You don't expect that there will be a smooth sail, because given the fact that Minister of State and higher in terms of allowances, in terms of salary, in terms of even feasibility. You will find out that in states where there are, in ministries where there are ministers of state, there will be frosty relationship between them and their minister and their substantive ministers.
I see.
I recall what happened with Festus Keyamo and Godswill Akpabio in 2019, where Festus Keyamo have to seek redeployment out of that ministry and eventually was posted to Ministry of Labor and Employment. So those are the issues I have. There is a bloated democracy that might not be effective supervision. And then issue of accountability and transparency, which is very key.
Right. And we'll take some of those concerns as we discuss the subject matter. But I do want to take us back on some of the things that you have said already. And Emmanuel, I'll bring that to you. One of the things that I did want us to look at was whether or not, as President Tinubu puts it, the appointment is made a reflection of diversity of the country. Obviously, Jide says, no, that's not right. I wonder what you think. Is this reflective of the diversity required of the president?
Well, to an extent, I would say yes, because I mean the constitution is very clear that you must have at least one minister from every state of the federation. You look at the list, you see that Ogun State has 3. The southeastern states have 1 each. I can't remember the other state that has. I think Lagos has 3, and then the other states have 2 or thereabouts. Besides the southeastern states, with a few other states, we were back on Kaduna that doesn't have yet because of Nasiru El-Rufai, whose nomination was stood down for certain petitions and the rest of them, and of course, subsequently he chose to withdraw his nomination. So if you look at it critically, you will see that across every state of the federation, at least you have one ministerial, one minister so far, because they already inaugurated. So you may not necessarily fault him that it is not a diverse cabinet. It is a diverse cabinet with some female cabinet members and of course the male counterpart. And I forgot to mention the Minister for Trade, Investment, Industry, and another fantastic lady.
Appointment made there.
I see. Antecedent, yes, yeah.
I see. How about the priority and strategy reflected in these appointments? What do you see, Emmanuel?
Well, I mean, those are some of the underlying factors. So, to some people, they feel that these ministerial these ministers, my brother Jide talked about the fact that for you to be a minister, you have to be a politician. Well, fine. But these are all very, very highly seasoned politicians. And the feelers is that these nominees or these ministers were selected strategically, giving the assumption that there might be a rerun and that these guys are the guys to do a lot of the jobs needed. So that because a lot of them played major role in the elections.
Emmanuel, isn't that far-fetched? I mean, what is giving you that impression?
That's the feelers. That's the feelers. That's not necessarily what I mean. Beyond, I'm a Nigerian, and I hear things from the grapevines. The Nigerians are talking. Nigerians, especially during the what do you call it, screening at the Senate, you could see how should I use the word shoddy? A lot of they didn't ask any serious question in my mind to a lot of the nominees at the time. Many of them were asked to take a bow and work. Some who had some controversies, so one way or the other, they resolved it in their usual political style. So the reality is that preponderance of them, come in with quite a number of baggages that Nigerians are not really ready for today, given our current economic climate and the need for rapid and accelerated economic development, which should be able to move this over 130 million multidimensional poverty, in citizens, to a level that they will be able to make a living for themselves. So
I see.
today, many people believe, in my view, I thought that it was going to be a cabinet populated by technocrats, albeit politicians or not, but at least, Wale Edris is a fantastic
Very well.
nomination. Dele Alake is a fantastic nomination.
Indeed.
Amongst
Dide, I want to
that
pick
can
your.
mention, yeah.
I apologize, Emmanuel. Dide, I want to pick your thoughts on, the same matter. When you look at the appointments, what does it tell you about President Tinubu's priorities and perhaps his strategy for the next 4 years as it is, or maybe even more?
Well, I wish I know, but, I have expressed my own disappointment about whatever strategies or whatever may have informed this bloated bureaucracy. If I may shock you a bit, Nigeria already has 1,483 ministries, departments, and agencies. We had a Steve Orosaya report of 2011 that actually advised on how we can make some savings and reduce the cost of governance. So whatever strategy he thinks, my brother and friend Emmanuel said he has a feelers that maybe because of the run, these are people who will be foot soldiers. Perhaps, maybe.
No, but Jide, I'm asking about priorities and strategies in reference to development for Nigeria, in reference to moving Nigeria forward.
I'm answering your question. I'm answering your question because I had thought that we are supposed to run a lean government. Look, there were 28 ministries. There are 28 ministries that Buhari left. Now we have increased the number to about 35. You have split you have kept that Ministry of Tourism separate from Ministry of Art, Culture, and Entertainment. You have kept that Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy, whatever that means. So then you added the Ministry of Communications. We used to have Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy. Now you added Minister of Communication, Innovation, and Digital Economy. Meanwhile, you have a Minister of Science, Technology, and I'm asking, pardon my ignorance, why do you have two ministers in Ministry of Police Affairs when you have Police Service Commission that is not well funded? You have a Police Service Commission that is constitutionally recognized, which should have been well funded to make it efficient. Now you are having two ministers in a police ministry, which ended up taking the gulp of the resources that should be spent on our defense. We have a cabinet that is devoid of one single senior military general or anybody in the military or police services. You appointed Minister of Police Affairs that doesn't have police background, that doesn't have security background. You appoint two ministers of defense that do not have knowledge of how the military works and all of that. So you ask yourself, what actually is the strategy? Is it for these people to start learning on the job? And the bigger challenge I foresee is even where will be the office space for these new ministries? Where is the budget to fund their activities in the next 4 months? Because the budget for 2023 had already been passed and assented to by President Buhari. And unless Asiwaju decided to now have a supplementary budget, the newly created ministries may not have budget to run for the next 4 months until when we have 2024 budget. So I don't really understand the strategy that will make you to say that in one breath you want to run a cost-effective economy, you want to reduce cost of governance, and then you go overboard and appoint 48 ministers.
What would have been the ideal cabinet size for you?
For me, I've even advocated that we need to alter Section 147 sub 3 that says a president should appoint or shall appoint at least a minister from every state. We don't need more than 18 ministers. Look, America where we copy presidential system of government only has 15 secretaries, which is equivalent of our ministers, that is running a country of about 350 million people. 15 secretaries. Why do Nigeria need 45, 48, or even 36 or 37? When we do not have the resources and the wherewithal. We just borrowed $3 billion from Afrexim Bank last week. I believe you know that to show up the value of our naira, which has been dancing a willow in the floated market. So
Indeed,
is it this kind
let's
of
bring.
economy you will now decide to have a cabinet of 50 members? It
Jide,
doesn't make sense.
let's bring.
I don't understand the strategy.
I see. Let's bring Emmanuel into the conversation. Emmanuel, are you towing the same line? Is it an over-bloated list of ministers? Could we have done without some of the portfolios?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I concur 100% with my big brother and friend Jido Joe. The reality is that if you look at from 1999, Obasanjo had I think about 25 ministers. I stand to be corrected, 25 or 28 ministers or thereabout. And I remember a lot of people went to court to say that he had not, followed 100% or with the Constitution of the Federation, which is made it mandatory that the president must have one minister per state. I think Yaradua had 35. Jonathan had about 36, and such like that. This is the largest, and it is over bloated. Actually, it's actually over bloated because one, our economy is at an all-time low. The naira is on a free fall.
Mm-hmm.
We're not earning as much as we used to earn. My expectation is that as soon whoever takes over amongst all the contestants at the time would have hit the ground running by first ensuring that they shore up our revenue base by first attacking the challenges of oil production and the oil theft in the Niger Delta by ensuring that at least we hit our 1.8 million barrels per day and make sure that whatever is sold goes into the single treasury account. That way we're able to get our funds. Whether you remove subsidy or you don't remove subsidy, but at least make sure that you have concrete or not, you have reasonable plan for the removal of that subsidy and all that. Then, of course, tackle the issue of the currency that was completely mismanaged in the last 8 years and has set us back heavily. With those 4 critical areas, I believe the government would have set a proper tone for what he wants to do. And I also believe, and I agree with my brother Jide, that this government had 3 months before inauguration and extra 2 months after inauguration, and they are still giving us what this whole, shenanigan. That's what I would call it, because it doesn't make sense. I don't even understand the celebration at the conference hall of the Aso Villa with this inauguration.
Well, it is good news for those who are coming in. So you can understand the celebration. But I do want to talk about the finance minister, Wale Edun. You mentioned that we expect that Nigeria gets better. We expect that, whether or not there's fuel subsidy, things turn around for the people of Nigeria. Mm-hmm. We're also looking at a petroleum ministry. We do not have a name yet. There are those who have begun to speculate that we may be towing the Buhari line, where the presidency will be in charge of that. Again, I would want you to analyze, the minister, the new minister for finance, but also tell us, Emmanuel, whether or not we will need a head for the petroleum ministry, or having the president in charge could be the thing for us again.
Unfortunately, the President Olusegun Obasanjo began this minister for petroleum thing, and of course followed by what do you call it, Buhari, and of course it looks like President Tinubu wants to go. But the truth is, it's not against the law. The president is an executive president, so he can choose to be the head of the ministry, of petroleum. Many of them have that interest at heart, where they particularly want to be directly involved. But the challenge there is that most often, as the Minister of Petroleum, you don't get memos from them at the Federal Executive Council. I remember back then in 2006 or thereabout, where as the chairman of NAITI, I think Obieze requested for a memo from the petroleum minister then, who was the president. And I learned the President Obasanjo was not happy with that level of request from a minister he appointed. But the reality is, you have two ministers, one for oil, one for gas, according to this new administration. I believe that they did that for efficiency, but I do not even understand the level of efficiency they are trying to look at by appointing those two. Probably the essence of appointing a minister for gas, a minister of state for gas, is so that that minister can focus on the CNG initiative, while the minister for oil will focus on the crude and the related activities and all that as they speak to the president. So I believe that's one of the strategies they're going to do. But its implementation is a major challenge for us. It's not about just having a strategy or appointing people. So it remains to be seen. Regarding the Minister of Finance and the coordinating minister for the economy, which was borrowed from the Jonathan administration using Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala at the time, I believe that's a good strategy. You must have some level of coordination, but many have argued that a minister is a minister, that you do not need to create super ministers that will now begin to sort of coordinate the rest of the ministers, that it leaves room for rancor and, some people feel where egos are brushed or bruised left and right, and at the end of the day, you don't get the level of performance you would have gotten because people feel that you made someone slightly higher than them, whereas the Constitution did not permit that. So we are going to watch with serious and keen interest to see how they navigate and bring us out of this quagmire. Wale Edu is a seasoned banker. He's proven himself over the years, and I have confidence in his person. I want to believe he's still that technocrat that he used to be. Yes, he's a politician as well, but I think he's a square peg in a square hole.
Emmanuel, we have to move on to our next topic for the day, but I do want to, give some last words also to Jide on the same subject just before we talk about Niger. And Jide, earlier you had talked about transparency and accountability, something the president also mentioned in his speech today. He talked about the fact that the people have the track record, but also he plans to hold them accountable and responsible for their various ministries. How do you think that the president could achieve that standard that he hopes to see in the people he's appointed?
First and foremost, there must be key performance indicators and the scope of work clearly delineated for these ministers. Like I hinted earlier on, the issues around the coordination between minister and minister of state is a frosty, a very, very tense relationship in many ministries where you have more than one person. And then you now have issue of zero tolerance for corruption. Over the time, people celebrate appointments like this because they believe it's their turn to eat, metaphorically. It's our turn to shine. It's our turn to eat. The former Minister of Interior, Sunday Afolabi, during Obasanjo regime, said Chief Bola, their Minister of Power, why is he criticizing their government when they have asked him to come and eat? So this is not come and eat. This is come and serve. And I believe that the president should show zero tolerance for corrupt practices. We saw the example in Ghana where a female minister who was just nursing the idea of how to abuse her office and corruptly enrich herself was removed. She has not even engaged in that vice before she was removed. So there must be zero tolerance for corruption. There must be better coordination. There must be proper accountability and transparency framework and the matrix for performance. I believe each of those ministers will get what is called scope of work. So you know what your scope of work is. If you are serving in Ministry of Education, and you're a junior minister at the Minister of State, what will you be responsible for in that ministry, so that there is no altercation, there is no frosty relationship between the substantive minister and then the Minister of State. But largely, I worry how a 71-year-old president will be able to effectively supervise 48 people at his age, and coupled with the fact that he still has the ECOWAS on his neck, is the chairman of ECOWAS, and the Niger crisis has not been resolved. So he will have too many things on his plate.
Thank you so much.
Yet he wants to keep.
Thank you so much for your time, Jide. I apologize. We would have to end it here. Jide and Emmanuel, I'm grateful for your insights on the subject matter. When we come back, let's talk about Niger.